Okay, sounds good. We'll just get started then. So welcome everyone to the Big Data Challenge orientation session. So I'll just get started with a short introduction on what the Big Data Challenge actually is. So basically what happens is we present a general theme where you define a research topic. And then we have workshops and webinars to teach you like statistics basics and data science knowledge to get you started on your research. We also supply you with data sets and data portals where you carry out your inquiry, come up with ideas, and develop solutions to present like your research findings in the form of a paper. So our theme for this year is new climate and information realities from oceans to glasswater. So basically what that means is like impact of climate change on water and oceans. And with this topic, you'll be able to aid CCUNESCO in reaching the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda by addressing these sustainable development goals. So with this project, you'll be able to propose solutions for local, regional, and global environmental problems from an environmental or socioeconomic perspective. And now we have a speaker from CCUNESCO to give a speech.
Sorry, just going to start the presentation. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
And can you see the presentation?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, good evening. I'm very happy to be here to contribute some introductory remarks for the Big Data Challenge. My name is Arthi Ramachandran, and I'm a PhD candidate at Concordia University and a part of the Youth Advisory Group at CCUNESCO, specifically in the Natural Sciences Committee. So I'm going to briefly introduce you to UNESCO and what we do as a national commission, and then I'll talk a bit about the Sustainable Development Goals and explain how science underpins them all. And finally, I'll talk a bit about my research and how I personally use big data to answer questions. So just a bit about who I am. So I was born and raised in Montreal as a first generation Indian Canadian and feel very strongly connected to both my cultures. I've always strived to stay in touch with my Tamil roots through active involvement in South Indian arts and cultural associations and received training in classical music and dance. In high school, I had the opportunity to participate in an educational program at the Huntsman Marine Science Center in St. Andrews, New Brunswick. It was this amazing experience that sparked my interest in marine biology and conservation and started me on the path towards becoming a scientist. Following my passion for science, I received my Bachelor's of Science in biology and went to pursue a PhD in microbial ecology, both at Concordia University. And I'm currently researching how climate change is affecting microbial communities in the Arctic Ocean. So as mentioned, I'm a member of the Youth Advisory Group at CCUNESCO. I'm also an individual council member at the Association for Polar Early Career Scientists. I'm treasurer at a nonprofit student-organized policy group called Science and Policy Exchange based in Montreal. And I'm also currently a MyTac Science Policy Fellow. So now I'm going to kind of transition a bit and talk to you a bit about UNESCO. So UNESCO is known as the intellectual agency of the United Nations. For 70 years, UNESCO has been striving to build networks among nations that enable the achievement of its mission for peace. So as we look for ways to build peace and sustainable development, we have to rely on people to innovate and create environments where there's hope in humanity. As a way of fostering peace among nations, UNESCO emphasizes social, environmental, and ethical dimensions of sustainable development. The ways of fostering peace and sustainable development, we need to be able to count on individuals' creativities and innovative power. And so there are 4 different groups that UNESCO looks into. So there's education, so mobilizing for education, building intercultural understanding, pursuing scientific cooperation in both the natural and social and human sciences, as well as protecting freedom of expression. So you might be wondering, how does UNESCO achieve such a huge mandate? Well, we have a network of 199 national commissions across the world, all cooperating together. And the Canadian Commission is one of the national commissions. So within Canada and internationally, UNESCO programs are administered through a number of networks. And so here are just a couple of examples I have for you. So there's biosphere reserves, the youth advisory group that I'm part of, geoparks, there's a program for girls and women's education in STEM, and we also have larger commissions and programs such as the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, and the part of this commission is to promote international cooperation and to coordinate programs in research, services, and capacity building in order to learn more about the nature and resources of the oceans and coastal areas. And we also have the International Hydrological Program, which is the only intergovernmental program of the United Nations system devoted to water research and management. And so as an agency of the United Nations, UNESCO implements many United Nations agendas, including the United Nations Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals. So what are the Sustainable Development Goals and what do they aim to do? In September 2015, the 193 members of states of the General Assembly of the United Nations, which includes Canada, unanimously adopted the resolution Transforming Our Worlds, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This agenda contains 17 aspirational goals for achieving social, economic, and environmental sustainable development worldwide. Through the SDGs, for the first time, the world has a universal and integral plan of action for people, planet, prosperity, peace. And all of this requires all countries and stakeholders to act together in partnerships. So the agenda has 17 sustainable development goals. Each has a number of targets attached to it. And I believe that every goal can be linked back to science, technology, engineering, maths, and science literacy. So as you know, in your Big Data Challenge, you're going to be working and using these Sustainable Development Goals. So I'm just going to highlight a couple that I think are relevant to this challenge. So one goal that'll play a role is clean water and sanitation, so Sustainable Development Goal 6. And the idea is that by 2030, we want to achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all. And this requires that we invest in adequate infrastructure, provide sanitation facilities, and encourage hygiene. And of course, we must protect and restore water-related ecosystems, and that's very essential to ensuring clean water and sanitation. And so in this Sustainable Development Goal, we will require quite a bit of investment and innovation in order to reach this. Another great Sustainable Development Goal is number 14, Life Below Water. And this goal is to sustainably manage and protect marine and coastal ecosystems from pollution, as well as to minimize and address the impacts of ocean acidification. And I think that one way of getting to this problem is looking at enhanced scientific cooperation at all levels. And so creating an integrated scientific approach that'll bring all types of sciences and all types of perspectives together in order to solve this problem on how to protect and conserve life below water. And of course, Sustainable Development Goal 13, climate action. There's currently no country that's not experiencing the drastic effects of climate change. Greenhouse gas emissions are more than 50% higher than in 1990. Global warming is causing long-lasting changes to our climate system, which threatens irreversible consequences if we do not act. And so it's going to be really important for us to all come together and support regions that will that are all at risk because of climate change. And so supporting vulnerable regions will directly contribute not only to Goal 13, but also to other SDGs. And these actions must also go hand in hand with efforts to integrate disaster risk measures, sustainable natural resource management, and human security into national development strategies. And I think that this is really possible with strong political will, increased investment, and using existing technology to limit the increase in global mean temperature to 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, aiming at this 1.5 degrees Celsius. And this requires urgent and ambitious collective action. So in order to achieve this 1.5 degrees Celsius goal, global carbon emissions need to fall by a staggering 45% by 2030 from the 2010 levels. And so we need to take this urgent action to tackle climate change and its impacts. We're finally realizing how extremely urgent and dramatic this problem is. I know all of you are spread around Canada, so I'm not sure if you had a climate march in your area today, but I attended the climate march today in Montreal, where it was estimated that about 500,000 people attended and came together to protest and demand that action needs to be taken right now. And I think it's really inspiring to see just how many people care and are becoming active in trying to find a solution. So now we're going to move on to the research I'm conducting in the Arctic Ocean and how I use big data to answer some of the questions I have. So the Arctic Ocean is rapidly changing. If we look at this graph provided by NASA, looking at the annual sea ice minimum from 1970s to 2018, we see that it is steadily and drastically decreasing. The atmosphere is warming 2 to 3 folds faster than the global rate. Surface waters are warming due to sea ice retreat and freshening due to increased sea ice meltwater and river runoff. And so this warming and freshening are having profound effects on Arctic marine ecosystems. And so my goal as a researcher is to understand how changes in the ocean temperature, chemistry, and currents are affecting bacterial communities and the essential nutrients they provide to the Arctic Ocean ecosystem. So in order to do this, I look at the DNA of bacteria living in the ocean and recreate genomes using bioinformatics tools. So I go up to the Arctic, I collect my microbial community samples, I then bring these back to the lab, extract the DNA from these samples, and then send that DNA to a sequencing center in order to do metagenomic sequencing. And that means that all the DNA fragments will be sequenced. And so once that's done, I receive terabytes of data back, which I now have to process and figure out how to put these DNA together into genomes and then use those genomes to understand the types of essential metabolisms these bacteria possess and the types of nutrients that they supply to the ocean food web. And so some of the questions that I ask are myself is, if the baseline nutrients provided by bacteria are changing, how will that affect higher level organisms such as fish? And in turn, how will this affect those who rely on these larger species for food? And so these are some of the thoughts that I have going into my data and how I look at it. And I think it's just really great having these big data sets and these new bioinformatic tools in order to come to answer these questions. So as I said, I've been focusing on Arctic ecosystems, and luckily this gave me the wonderful opportunity to conduct research in the Arctic Ocean, both aboard the Canadian Coast Guard ship, the Louis S. Saint Laurent, which is Canada's largest icebreaker, and at the Canadian High Arctic Research Station in Nunavut. My research expeditions allowed me to witness the dramatic effects of climate change to Arctic ecosystems firsthand. They also gave me the opportunity to have meaningful discussions with members of northern communities about how climate change is directly affecting their way of life. And something I think that we all came and understood together is that we've been given this one planet, and now we have one chance to save it. We need to bring together innovation, investment, and integrated scientific approaches to come up with solutions on how to combat this climate crisis we're facing. And so some top challenges that I think that we're facing is One, that we need the large emitters of greenhouse gases to address climate change and work towards drastically lowering their emissions. So we know that ocean acidification is increasing due to these emissions, and life below water is suffering, and we need to find a way to mitigate this. We also need to increase food production while not greatly expanding agricultural land and keep our fisheries healthy. So healthy marine and freshwater habitats. And finally, we need to ensure that cities grow sustainably while maintaining healthy waters and lands. So we need to maintain the ecosystem we have and live sustainably and create solutions that are innovative as well as sustainable in order to fight climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthi, for your very insightful speech. I hope that everyone found something out of this speech. And so before we get more into logistics, we're going to have a quick demonstration on how you would carry out data analysis.
All right, hello everyone. Thanks for tuning in and showing interest in the Big Data Challenge. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. Okay. So I'll start off with an introduction. My name is Rylan. I'm relatively new. This is my first year on STEM fellowship, and I'm currently studying computer science. You can find me at the University of Calgary. So we know our theme this year is focusing on climate and water data. So we're looking specifically at the impact on ocean ecosystems, as was previously mentioned, and also agriculture. So with that in mind, I'm going to start off with my experience on applying data science modeling. So a portion of my work does apply to this theme of climate and agriculture. So this summer, I worked with a synthetic biology research team where we are going to be presenting our work internationally at the end of October. The competition, called the International Genetically Engineered Machine, is open to projects that apply synthetic biology to solve various issues. So usually problems that can be only improved with a summer's worth of study. Most teams are looking to find computer science students to help apply modeling. So this year, our team aims to tackle the issue of green seed within the canola agricultural industry. The green seed causes hundreds of millions of dollars lost for farmers across the prairies. The main issue is that green canola seed is sold for a lower price, and the main cause of this green seed is the increasing unpredictability of the climate. So early frost prevents the canola from maturing. This means chlorophyll stays locked in the seeds when harvested, and that diminishes the oil quality. As you can see here, a quote from a farmer. Yeah. And so the green seed is a big issue. So I'm going to share one approach that we used. We use weather prediction to help farmers alleviate the production of green seed. Now, this is only a small portion of the work we've done on our team, but I'm not going to present any synthetic biology here because that's out of context. So we attempted to create a weather prediction model for a local farm area in Alberta using past weather data observed at this location. Its main goal was to provide farmers knowledge in the spring, a specific date range when to expect frost to come in the fall, focusing great accuracy in the extreme long term. So it was up to 180 days in advance. And currently this is different from the weather network because the weather network can only provide a decent prediction up to 2 weeks in advance, and this is not enough to help farmers plan their seeding. So our model made use of recurrent neural networks to provide great prediction accuracy. So as you can see here, the blue line indicates the actual daily minimum temperature for the 2018 growing season. And the purple line represents what our model predicted. And this was off by only 2 degrees on average. So farmers can then take these predictions to guide their decisions when to seed in hopes of preventing the most amount of green canola seed. So I think that will summarize my work. So next I'm going to try to explain the takeaways that I hope can help you guys. So I want to emphasize that when looking for data to use in this high school big data challenge, it's worth trying to find a case where people can benefit from the data you model. The first step to this is to pose questions that are feasible to answer and can provide useful knowledge. So for example, how does the increasing temperature affect terrestrial ecosystems? This is a pretty general question, and the answer is probably multifaceted and complex. It's not that straightforward to answer this. So we want to look at more specific questions. You could try ask, is the increase of global temperature causing more violent hurricanes? This seems like a more measurable answer or question. So although this may be difficult to prove, it's a more meaningful question because we've addressed phenomena that's actually quantifiable. So to attempt to answer this, some precise modeling has to be considered. We should first justify there is indeed an increase in hurricane intensity. So does the recent deviation in the intensity of hurricanes constitute a difference significant enough worth mentioning? So how can we confirm that the latest trend seems to be different from the previous patterns? And this is something that can be determined with statistical significance, and it's a useful mathematical procedure that can validate change. So you can look into previously proved statistical tests like the chi-square test to prove statistical significance. So I gathered data here from this website, epa.gov, and it shows a correlation between the intensity of hurricanes with the average sea level temperature. So we can see that this relationship is increasing. Now the units on the hurricane intensity is just power dissipation index, and that's reads like the maximum sustaining wind speeds over 6 days. So one may hypothesize that climate is causing an increase in violent hurricanes, but I don't want to be so quick in concluding that because it doesn't necessarily mean that global warming is causing more violent storms. The observed correlations are not enough to answer the causal question. Maybe we should consider other means that could affect hurricane intensity. For example, here, deforestation leads to the disruption of the water cycle, which could cause some hurricanes, which could cause the hurricanes to be affected. So I guess the main takeaway I wanted to show was that correlation does not strictly mean that causation. Okay, so I want to move on to my last topic. I'll just briefly introduce Plotly. It's a Python graphing library that I think is straightforward enough to implement within a few hours, assuming you know some introductory Python programming. Plotly allows the use of basic charts. Here is their website. They've got everything laid out for you to follow. They give elegant code examples that are really easy to read. And they've got everything from basic charts to more advanced 3D scientific visualization tools. Okay, that wraps up my demo. Thanks for listening.
Okay, so now I'm just going to go over really quickly some logistics regarding the challenge. So first of all, of course, the timeline. So the registration deadline is October 18th, which is also when the official challenge starts. So that's when we'll be providing you with the workshops, when you'll be able to talk to your mentors, which I'll talk about more about later. And when we'll also send you all the data sets and data portals. So you'll have around 2 to 3 months to work on your project, and it's due January 18th. So then after that, what happens is we get PhD reviewers to review all the projects. And on the week of February 2nd, we'll be announcing the finalists who will be moving on to Big Data Day. And that is going to be February 27th. That slide is wrong. Don't mind that. Okay, so the registration process is pretty simple. We have an Eventbrite link from which you sign up. And you can find that on our website, which is stemfellowship.org, or you can find it on our Facebook page, or you can just try to find it through Eventbrite. So we do have like teams of 2 to 4, so you can't have teams of 5 or anything like that. So this is our website. Yeah. Okay, so we share data and resources with you on a Google Drive folder. So we'll be providing with open data on climate and water, as well as socioeconomic and humanitarian data. We also have stuff on the World Bank. And so we have a lot of different starting points for you to begin your research. Because we have such a broad theme, you need to define like a more specific research topic within the theme. And if you've gotten started and you can't find data, that would be a good idea to revise your topic, and you can talk with your mentors about this and they'll be able to help you. Okay, so Slack is the workspace we use for all communications. It's where you'll be paired with your mentor, where we'll be putting announcements and communications, and where we will be providing updates and reminders for deadlines. Also, if you want, every team has the opportunity to be paired with a mentor on Slack, so you can ask them for feedback, advice on your projects, and they can also help you with analysis, or if you're having technical issues, then you can ask them as well. So these are experts in data science or climate change, so they'll be able to help you on whatever you're having issues with. This year, we're also asking our mentors to hold informal workshop sessions if you wish to do so, which would be really helpful in getting feedback and finding out like what direction to go in. So we provide data science and statistics workshops. They're kind of in a series. So we have an intro to statistics, which will help you in like what statistical methods you should use to analyze your data. We have data manipulation. So then that's basically like how to filter your data to make it more organized and easier to read. And we have that in both Python and R. We have data visualization, so that's all the visualization forms available to represent your data types. So that's things like graphs, charts, plots, and things like that. We also have workshops specifically for Tableau, and Tableau is a type of data visualization tool, which makes it really easy, and it also makes some really nice graphics. And then finally, we have some basic machine learning workshops. So these are like linear regressions and k-means clustering, which you'll find out more about that after you start your project. So our workshops are all provided through a platform called GitHub. We'll send that to you after registration, but basically they're via Jupyter Notebooks, which makes it really easy and interactive. Okay, so Overleaf is basically like it's a platform for collaborating on documents. It has a really nice template which makes your paper look really fancy and like legit. So you can also use basic code to manipulate the design of your paper if you want, but we provide you with a template and some Overleaf workshops to help you get started on that. Okay, so Big Data Day is basically the finale event of the challenge. So after you submit your projects, we have PhD reviewers, which select the top finalists. And then those finalists proceed to Big Data Day, which is like the culminating event of the Big Data Challenge. So each team has the opportunity to present about like 15 minutes presentations to show like your research process and like develop solutions to the issues you were investigating. And we have a panel of academic and industry experts who will be evaluating your presentations. And this is where you'll be able to like win awards and everything like that. And we do have quite a few $1,000 prizes. And so the event is held in Toronto and Calgary. So if you're not living in Toronto or Calgary, we do provide travel grants. They're provided on a by need basis. And we'll be sending out the application after the finalists have been announced. Oh, also additional resources, we'll be providing the links to all the past winning papers, as well as the rubric which the reviewers will be using. Okay, so we have quite a few prizes, so that are both academic and non-academic. The full abstracts of all the participants will be published, but the winning papers will have their full papers published in the STEM Fellowship Journal, which is an open access peer-reviewed journal that's published by Canadian Science Publishing. The winning teams will also have an opportunity to get in a mentorship call with the League of Innovators. And the League of Innovators is basically an organization that's related to business. So they help youth start startups and entrepreneurship. So for each location, we also have a $1,000 Scholarly Communication Award, and a $1,000 Arnold Chan Memorial Award for Student Innovation, as well as we might also be providing a $1,000 Analytics Talent Award.